Welcome to Worthy of Work, the podcast dedicated to helping anyone who's done having lousy, lonely, disappointing relationships and who's ready to do the work to build better connections. I'm Stephanie Rivard, and if you've ever questioned your sanity, wondered if healthy relationships are even real, or wonder if there's anything you can do to attract or create a healthier relationship, you are exactly where you need to be. Together, we will unpack the healthy relationship skills no one taught us. Hi there. Today we're going to dive into a really important skill, how to validate someone's emotions. Now, this is a tool that I think is critical that we master or at least start flexing and practicing. So we're going to dive into briefly why does validating an emotion matter, what it is not, what validating emotion is, and how to do it. We'll summarize with a few scripts so I can give you an example and give you some language to start trying this out. Let's dive in. Let's start by saying, why bother? Why validate someone's emotions? And I'll just share my own experience. When I'm in a difficult conversation and sharing my emotions with someone, and someone can validate that for me, and we'll explain what that is and what that sounds like. What happens to me is I feel heard. I feel understood, and it kind of helps close that chapter on emotions and helps me move into the next chapter where we can look at the intellect, about the facts and about the details. And I have an article I wrote about that. Maybe I'll do a podcast on when we engage in conversations from emotions or thoughts and the helpful tips in that. But validating really is just someone saying, yeah, I understand the emotion that you're sharing. When we don't do that, when we don't validate someone's emotions, it would sound like, oh, you just don't understand, or you're overreacting, you always do this. Or that's not what I meant. You're seeing this differently, or you don't have all the facts right. And instead of responding to the person's emotion and validating that, instead the rebuttal is dismissive. It might even be saying that your emotion's not correct because you have the details wrong, or that emotion's not appropriate here. But when we dismiss it, it leaves the person feeling unseen. What my experience is when I haven't validated those emotions, the emotions continue to dominate. And in fact, now we're going to start this vicious argument that you might be able to relate to, where now the person repeats and repeats and is just trying to have you see, these are my feelings. So what can we do instead? This is where validating someone's emotions is a really good tool. What does that look like? Well, first, maybe I'll just say validating someone's emotion is not agreeing. It is acknowledging. It is saying, oh, I see that. You're feeling frustrated. Oh, you're feeling dismissed. And we're just giving affirmation that I've heard you, that I understand this, and we can even extend it to say, oh, if this was your experience, then yeah, maybe I can see how those feelings would surface. So, what do we do with this? We're in probably a difficult conversation with someone, and they are unloading their perspective, their emotions. And here's a little mini framework that helps me. One is I'm going to pause and really try to listen. This is hard to do when I might feel under attack. I might feel inspired to defend myself, or to point out that, like, you're missing some facts, dude. Like, no one, I need to fill in the gaps for you. But instead, to pause and just really lean into listening. And what I'm going to be listening for, sometimes if the person has enough emotional intelligence, they will offer the emotions. They will say, I'm feeling an emotion. However, that's not always the case. So I'm going to listen and help identify what that emotion is. And this might sound like it seems like you're really frustrated. It seems that you're angry because I canceled our plans. And I'm offering an emotion. This is another way of validating, because I'm saying, here is this, do I have this right? And it gives the other person an opportunity to help identify those emotions for themselves if they're not already doing it to begin with. So that listen, pause. Now I'm going to name that emotion with some curiosity, not a statement like you're just pissed off. I'm saying, no, it seems like, are you angry because of this? And it's a curious phrasing that we can use there to help clarify, and then we can validate. That's the kind of the third sense here. And the validating is acknowledging, normalizing. And these phrases they could sound like, oh, yeah, I can see how that would be frustrating. Or, oh, I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. Or, thanks for telling me that. This is important. I'm glad I can understand that this has really bothered you. Yeah, I'd probably feel like that if I was in that experience. Or that makes sense given your perspective and given your experience on this. That makes sense to feel dismissed or frustrated or angry, resentful. These are the sentences that let the other person know, I think I've heard you right. And I'm validating, saying, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense to feel these emotions given the situation. And again, we're making sense. This kind of acknowledging it is not the same as saying, yeah, absolutely. You are right. I am wrong. We're not doing that. We're not getting into defensiveness. We're not explaining, well, you don't understand my perspective. You don't understand this. We're resisting all of that. Just staying really focused on that emotion that they're sharing and saying, I hear you. I get that. That is validating someone's emotions. And one really important note here is to resist saying, I hear you, but. If you throw that but in there, it will erase everything. It defeats the purpose. You're going to finish that sentence with something defensive, explaining, helping them get it or see it differently. Resist that. I hear you. That makes sense. That would be frustrating. And these are just skills we get to practice. This week, I challenge you. When someone is sharing their emotions, I encourage you to pause, to identify that emotion in a curious fashion, and then just say something that lets them know, I get it. That makes sense. I hope this helps. And if it has, please share it. I'm just trying to get these tools out there that have helped me so much and that have improved my relationships, and I hope it does the same for you. Thanks. Bye for now. That's it for today's episode. If this resonates with you, please subscribe, share, or leave a review. It helps more people find this work. And remember, I'm not a therapist. I'm just someone who once thought dysfunction was pretty normal. I wanted better and learned new tools. And so can you.